or a liar, you'll tell your audience when you're selling them gravity, because he's just a salesman, punting lies like all the people he debunks. He's going to make up nonsense about it behaving like a solid. So at a fundamental level, either Thunderfoot thinks gases behave like solids, making him more stupid than a 7-year-old, or he's a liar and a fraud like all the people he debunks. So you all saw my Thunderfoot video then, I take it?
I saw Thunderfoot's video. He sure pulled up a lot of old videos of yours.
Yeah, man. Went back to an interview with Cammy and then strawman me with an interviewee that I'd had on. It's like, all right, so Cammy's opinion's my opinion, is it? Her being interviewed by me makes her opinion mine, does it? Nice strawman.
He didn't like any of your new videos, I don't think.
No, he didn't.
I didn't see any of the new videos.
No, he just went back to old stuff. But that's fine. It doesn't make any difference. I've been saying the same thing for quite a long time. So it really doesn't bother me that he's used old videos. What I do like is when he says, this here bonded ball is like an unbonded gas. Because he's basically a fraud salesman, punting nonsense with lies. So rather than actually explaining to people how gas, like the helium he detailed, works, he lied. Either he's completely incompetent or a liar. Let's not just peg him a liar. He might just be really, really stupid. This is Thunderfoot, by the way. Thick as shit. That would be to say that you would tell somebody that gas behaves like a bouncy ball because you need to sell them something. That's gravity. Something he's under the misapprehension is a force because of this Cavendish quote-unquote experiment. Yeah, it's not. That's 105 years out of date. Also, gas doesn't behave like bouncy balls. But if you're a retard or a liar, you'll tell your audience when you're selling them gravity because he's just a salesman, punting lies like all the people he debunks. He's going to make up nonsense about it behaving like a solid. So at a fundamental level, either Thunderfoot thinks gases behave like solids, making him more stupid than a 7-year-old, or he's a liar and a fraud like all the people he debunks. Now, it didn't take much effort to poke this clown, did it? For him to start clowning and lying and being a fraud about his product he's selling. That's gravity. So that he can get around a second law of thermodynamics violation. I also noted that when he's debunking people who are selling products like vacuum chambers, they get a practical demonstration to debunk them, whereas we get wiki parroting and him telling us to imagine that gas is like bouncy balls. Right, clown show, Thunderfoot? No, mate, that's just you being a fraud. Or a retard. You let me know in the comments which it is. Fraud? Like the people who claim their products can do things they can't. You know, gas behaving like bouncy balls. Fraud. Because he's selling you something. Gravity is religion. Or thick as shit. I don't mind which. And it's good fun to laugh at Thunderfoot for being demonstrably stupid. Because he is stupid. He thinks bonded solids behave like gases. Nah, when you're going to make a video about me and talk about helium in it, expect me to show helium. Defying every stupid word you've said.
I would have thanked him for the advertisement.
Oh no, I'll thank him for his stupidity.
And Spurs said, well, here's a scientific method with no diploma and no authority, and it just kicked his butt all over the place.
Yeah, people need to pay close attention to that. Spurs stuck to the scientific method and handed a PhD his ass. All he did was talk about something we all learned in 5th grade. That's all he did. And he handed the guy his ass. Because the guy's a muppet, a pretender clown, a pseudo-scientist who demands that people respect what he says. He's not offering scientific validity, he's just telling you what's what. And when someone says, okay, Mr. Scientist, give me your science, he says, respect my authority! You've got no call to tell me I'm wrong, Mr. Flat Earther.
No, he called him a new name, you buffoon. I don't think it's a challenge. I think it's exposing pseudoscientists when they don't stick to the science. I mean, isn't that what Nathan just did?
QE's advice. Just get them to open their mouth. That's all you got to do. If they've got a heliocentric worldview and think they're a scientist, they are going to embarrass themselves at the hand of flat earthers every single time. This PhD that Spurs handed his ass to, yeah, he was an embarrassment to the globe side. Demand that we respect what you say? No, we'll just laugh at you and your lack of science. Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll laugh at you, angry little man. Respect my authority like Cartman. Yeah, like pseudoscience. Very well defined. A claim of science where there has not been an application of the scientific method. That would be pseudoscience. So once you understand what the scientific method involves, and then you see people like Thunderf00t saying, this is science, when they talk about the Boltzmann formula. That's not science, you moron, that's maths. It doesn't have any practical demonstrations or examples. It's just how you calculate and then reify mathematics. And call it science. No. You need to learn the difference between science and maths. As I correctly identified with Thunderf00t, he doesn't know the difference between calculating things and establishing cause and effect with the scientific method. He thinks that maths is science. He literally said the Boltzmann formula is the most important thing in science. It's not science.
The best a formula can do, whatever that formula is describe, right?
Yeah. Maths describes, science explains. Maybe I should be less hard on Thunderf00t. You know, he's subject to the same brainwashing as everybody else, ultimately, isn't he? So when he's typically going to give practical demonstrations and show how people are wrong when they make claims, when it comes to his own religious beliefs and his own claims, he can just use circular reasoning. Well, of course the sky's a vacuum. Look at the sun, it's a burning ball of gas in a vacuum. Now, that's not me assuming that the sky is a vacuum to prove the sky's a vacuum. That's my fundamentalist zealotry coming out in spades. But that's what they do. They point a light in the sky and say that's a burning ball of gas in a vacuum and it's not dispersing. Therefore, what? The natural law that is the second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to the Earth? Yeah, it does. Entropy's real. Now,
well, that's because they're asserting gravity, right?
Yeah, of course he's asserting gravity. He used 105-year out-of-date rhetoric. He used CV Boy's Reverend John Michel Cavendish gravity to assert that mass attracts mass, and therefore gas would need an escape velocity to overcome this force of gravity. Oh, right. No. That's 105 years out of date. Gravity is not a force. Pseudo-Ramonian force space bending conceptual mediums of space-time, as described by Einstein in mathematics. Merely a reification fallacy. But Thunderf00t doesn't understand the difference between a mathematical reification and scientific validity. Like I say, he even calls himself a scientist. He's just stupid. He wouldn't know science if it slapped him in the face. Let's just maybe phrase it into a question for anybody who might be watching this after the fact and thinks, no. He's a scientist, man. If he says Boltzmann formula, he must be right. Yeah, we're going to need an independent variable, a dependent variable, and a viable hypothesis for this mathematical graph. That's what we're going to need for it to be scientifically valid, as he claimed, incorrectly. Why bother? Let's not leave it hanging out there. No, you're just a clown. You think maths is science, Thunderf00t. Your Boltzmann graph is just maths, abstractions, not physical. I didn't have to go scouring through his videos to find his nonsense. Just had to poke him a couple of times and trim it out from the live show. Next thing you know, he's telling us about how solids are gases to sell his religious belief. What a fraud.
You do use formulas to determine ratios and reactions, but you don't necessarily need a formula to describe what a reaction is doing or what's happening or how this chemical is reacting with that chemical. You just can see it, test it, and know it. Maybe use mathematics to describe it. So if math is science, why is there no mathematical formula in biology?
What you're saying is, why would you have mathematical formulas to calculate how much there is something happening? Well, calculating how much of something is maths. Perfectly acceptable to qualify how much something has happened. But explaining why it happened would be to establish the cause of an effect. That's science. Now, an establishment of an independent variable, that would be something you think causes the effect, yet to be varied or manipulated to cause the effect. Well, that doesn't require any qualification in mathematics. You've got a presumed cause which you're going to vary to see if it causes an effect. You don't need to qualify how much the effect happens. It's not relevant to whether or not your presumed cause caused it or not. Now, what we're talking about when I detail establishing independent variable, that would be presumed cause, dependent variable, that would be naturally occurring phenomena, and control variables, that which you will hold constant to not skew your test, that's science. And again, Thunderf00t thinks that because he's watched the sun a lot, or looked at Jupiter, that he's doing science. He literally called astronomy science. No. You want to give me an independent variable for any of the phenomena you observe? Have you varied and manipulated that which caused the effects you observed? No! At best, you can adhere to step 1. Observe natural phenomena, your little lights in the sky. But from there, you're going to make up a little story about them being gas giants in vacuums without any validity being offered, without any hypothesis being formulated, and without the most important bit of science. Not the Boltzmann formula, as you believe. Not the maths that isn't science. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is experimentation, Thunderf00t. Let's just repeat that, because Thunderf00t's thick. He thinks a mathematical graph is the most important thing in a method used to establish cause. No, experimentation. That would be the actualization of hypotheses. Actualization of your assumption to see if it's actually true or not. Now that's science. Not maths, not the Boltzmann formula. You bloody mathematician posing fraudulently as a scientist. I'm going to need where he got his PhD, so I can let them know that to lie to an audience about his religious beliefs, he's told them gas behaves like solids. He needs to be stripped of his accreditation. He's a retard. Thunderf00t, we're going to need to know where you got your PhD and what it's in, because it's in something that you're claiming is science, and then you're going on to describe gas as a solid. What a moron. How thick have you got to be educated by flat earthers in what science is? Now, meanwhile, he starts out his video about me ad homing the crap out of me, another logical fallacy employed by morons. Don't attack the argument, attack the man. And how much he earns on Patreon, because that's relevant to a demonstration that violates natural law, isn't it, Thunderf00t? Now, that would be a logical fallacy you've employed. Yeah, look it up. Ad hominem attack. Not addressing the argument, addressing the man. He then goes on to qualify how smart he is, because of how much he's looked through a telescope at. Yeah, so you've observed a lot of phenomena. Almost sounds like science, Thunderf00t. You're going to need to establish cause with a hypothesis and systematic experimentation to validate your presumed cause. To actually call it science, though. And if you haven't got that, that makes what you talk about pseudoscience. Because you're claiming it's science, and it isn't. That's defined also. Pseudo-scientist. That's what Thunderf00t is. Now, he doesn't know who he's messing with. He thinks we're thick, because we're flat earthers. And he's been trained like a good little dog to automatically ridicule people who say the earth is flat, and then declare that gas behaves like solids. Because he's under the religious aspirations of globe earth, and they take over and make people sound stupid. But they feel it's necessary to say that their opponent's stupid automatically when they declare that gas behaves like a bloody bouncy ball. Gas is like this solid thing. Yeah, if you're going to do that, don't mention helium in your video, because I'll completely humiliate you by showing what helium does. It doesn't fall down, go boom boom with a single vector, as asserted with gravity. Oh, that would be net force 0, according to the bullshit we have. Net force 0, right? No, not a force. But you're going to tell me you release stuff having detailed what helium is, and you'll claim that you've done spectroscopy by looking through masses and masses of different materials? Yeah, you clearly didn't know us very well. We've got a PhD spectroscopy expert on our Ballbusters panel who details how spectroscopy works and what a complete sham stellar spectroscopy is. Now, given that that particular Ballbuster, that would be Dr. John D, PhD spectroscopy, has exposed the complete clown fraudery that is a claim of a gas giant being the sun, Because it's not in any way scientific, not in any way controlled. Looking through everything else. Real spectroscopy has controlled circumstances when they study. Now, you can't do that with stellar spectroscopy. It's an absolute joke. But you need that sham to affirm your religious belief in gravity and sky vacuums and helium-based suns. Oh, unfortunately, you're tangling with people who do understand what science is and will expose you as a complete clown when you declare that looking at lights is science and bouncy balls are gas. No, mate, it will just show what helium does and laugh at you for being a complete moron. So Thunderfoot, I'm telling you how stupid you are. We're laughing at you, bouncy balls of gas. You learn what an intermolecular bond is, you complete retard.